again, like we kind of left off, really what you do with corner. I mean, it outside of what you can. I mean, what I try to do, especially in installation, is I try and install corner and stick on the same day because essentially it's the same play, minus one thing at the very very beginning of the play. So, and 2x2, you know, quarterback tells we read this corner. We read them pre-snap and then we read them post-snap right away. Now,
Okay.
post-snap, if he's sitting back like this, that's a good indication that he's probably going to drop into a deep third, right? Which
Right.
then just takes away the space for the corner route. So then we see that all of a sudden, okay, now we're just playing with this guy right here. Now the play just turns to stick, really.
Okay.
So now we follow the rule with this guy. If this guy shoots out, we just throw the slant and sit behind it, or the snag route right behind it. And if he stays there and just stays in that little zone right there, then we just wheel it out to the running back. And it's just stick. Now, if this corner is here, like right, say like 5 yards, right? And pre-snap, we can see that this grass right here is open, right?
Yeah.
So what the quarterback will do post-snap is his eyes will immediately go here. Immediately, his eyes will immediately look at that corner, and if that corner stays here in this area, we know that we are throwing this corner out automatically. The quarterback's throwing the ball to this spot right here, not to where the receiver's at, but to this spot right here, and essentially he's going to throw that receiver open. So
Okay.
and really, I mean, you can even see it marked off on these lines here. It's really literally a 10-yard pass. I mean, we're not trying to bomb this out 40, 50 yards. It's at most 20. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you're throwing you teach the quarterback to throw to a spot where that receiver is going to be. And so what we tell the receivers we teach them landmarks. So I don't try and teach as far as yardage because it's almost impossible for a kid to really know, okay, I've gone 5 yards, I've gone 8 yards, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
kind of teach it in steps. So for middle school, I would have them go about 4 steps and then they're making their break. So
Okay. So is that
four
a
steps.
lazy corner?
What's that?
Is that a lazy corner route, or is he just putting his foot in the ground and just sticking it?
Putting his foot in the ground and sticking. So then once we
Yeah.
tell him, okay, once you put your inside foot in the ground and you're planting, if you don't give them a landmark, this will eventually turn into an out route, which you don't want. You want them to angle it. So what we tell them to look at and what we set up at practice is we took the pylons out every practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on our practice field, we had a rule, and you hear other coaches talk about this too. The rule was that if we are outside the 20, which we are right here, then once he hits that corner route, right, his angle is angling towards that front pylon. So
Okay.
that'll keep him on track this way because otherwise it turns into an out route and he goes this way.
Right.
And then if we were in the red zone, then he just changes and he angles it to the back pylon.
Right. Okay.
And the big thing with the corner route is you got to make sure that they don't round the route out. So those round it out, and they won't make a hard plant when they cut. And you got to let them know, if you round the route out, if you just kind of run like a half circle, that defender's gonna stay with you because you're not shaking him, you're not selling another route piece. A lot of times what we tell the kids is it's a vert till it's not. So you run a vertical till it's not a vertical. And so if you're running a corner route here, right? And we tell them 4 steps, those first 4 steps make it seem like you're running a vertical. You're running those first 4 steps as hard as you can to try and make it appear like you are getting upfield trying to get by him. And that, automatically that'll get this defender, whether he's here or he's back here, just enough to turn his hips, whether he turns and swivels his hip to the inside or the outside. It just makes him turn and move, reacting to those hard steps. And then all of a sudden you put that plant on him, it just creates even that much more space.
Okay.
So one thing we tell them is it's a vert till it's not. Even if it's a hitch, you're running a hitch, those first 3-4 steps before you come on that dead stop, you make it seem like you're running a vertical. So
Okay.
that's one thing we kind of instilled in our receivers day one.
Okay.
So that should help them is too with rounding out the routes because this is, especially in middle school, is the number one problem. I'm even having a problem with my high school guys. We run a corner route, and some of them are still rounding out the route, and it's and then we rep it again and say don't round out the route, and then we do it in 7-on-7, and he plants that foot hard, and all of a sudden boom, all that space. He's like, coach, you were right. And I'm like, I know I was right. I'm telling you.
Okay.
So
So
don't let him
pre-snap,
get lazy with it.
pre-snap and post-snap, you're for corner, you're eyeing that corner.
Mm-hmm.
And if he does anything,
But
if he
bail.
does anything but bail, you're gonna hit
That corner out.
the
Now,
corner.
the only thing that would change, and in middle school you don't see it as much, is say, for example, we had two high safeties. I'll move this guy back for safeties, right? Two high
Okay.
safeties. If we had two high safeties, which I saw one time in my 17 years of coaching middle school, I saw it one time. So we would eye the safety. So in high school, I see a lot of two high safety, but so right here we would say, okay, if they do have too high, okay, we look at them, and then we look at the width. If they are inside the hash marks, then we can still potentially throw that corner. So we would still look at this corner back here. We can still throw this route. If these safeties are widened out like this, then it gets a little dicey. Then it would
Okay.
get dicey. So then if we saw something like this, we might tag something. We might say, oh, you know what? We'll play stick here. Right? We'll play stick here. We'll keep this here. But what if we tag him to a post route and just attack this middle portion of the field?
Right.
So we would just, if we saw that, we would just tag it. Say,
Okay.
what? Well, we'll call corner to the right, but you know what? Instead of running a corner, run a post. So
Okay.
we saw that. So, but very rarely did we see any too high safety. It was usually one high like that. So yeah, pre-game post. Excuse me. We are reading that corner. If he does anything but bail, we're throwing that corner out. And then if he does bail, which sometimes it did, or sometimes he was pre-snapped and he was out at 7 or 8 yards, and that's an indication. Hey, you know what? Leave it alone. Leave it alone. So then then the play just immediately turns into stick, which is why it's so easy to have those two plays installed on the same day.
Okay.
Because you could install stick first, install the basic concept, the basic idea, the basic thought process. Like for example, that number one rule: if that defender stays in, we throw out. If he goes out, we throw in. Kind of rule. The same rule applies here, even though now it's the outside receiver running the stick route, essentially. Same rule still applies. You're still picking on that guy.
So your outside receiver who's running that stick. So what is he? Three steps, and then
he's taking about basically a 1 to 2. What he wants to do is he wants to get 1 to 2 steps upfield, enough to allow this corner route to break, right? Because he wants to break in behind it. He doesn't want to cut in front of it. So he's not immediately going to take off here. So he's going to take a 1, 2, maybe at the most 3 steps, and kind of slow play it a little bit. So it allows this corner to clear, and then he just settles up in that space in between the overhang and the middle linebacker. Same rule still applies. Running back swings away from the trips. Now, basically what it does is H replaces the flat route in the 2x2. The swing. He's essentially the swing in a 3x1. So C still has that corner route. Y still has the slant and sit or snag route. And now instead of F not being part of the swing, it's now H, and he just runs a flat route.
Okay.
So again, same read applies here. We read that corner first. Right? If he does anything but bail, we're throwing that corner route. If he doesn't, then we read this most inside guy.
Okay.
Just like stick. Because more than likely what's going to happen is this guy right here, he's going to take off of the corner. But even if he's head up or inside of it, unless for example, the only way he could really mess with that corner route is if he's playing something like this, way out like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the only way he could really mess with that corner route. And if that's the case, and this corner's sitting back here, or if that corner takes off right here, we just hit this flat route.
Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, if he sits like that, that's okay. I mean, really, quite honestly, that corner sits there like that, and they kind of double team that and then back off like that. Quarterback has a choice. He could hit that slant right there, or he could hit the flat route right there too. So
Okay.
So that's the
And
only way you could really mess that corner out. So, but I mean, the quarterback would see that pre-snap. You know what I mean?
yeah,
He comes on, he should see it. Say, wait, he's not here. He's way back here. Okay, so that something's up.
and still reading backside first, correct?
You can look backside, yeah. I mean, I mean, you typically what I tell my quarterback is just read it left to right, left to right. Just get your eyes started left and just work your way right to see what the defense is giving you. I mean, you
Okay.
could do it the other way. It didn't really matter. That's just how I did it.
All right.
Yeah, and I just got my quarterback used to that.
Right.
I wanted to see his head start over here. I wanted to see his like during practice, I'd always be behind him, and I wanted to see his helmet here and work his way across while he's walking up to the line. There's no wasted time. So we get the signal or whatnot. He's walking up to the line as the offense linemen getting their splits and ready to go. He should be scanning at that time before he even gets ready to start his hands up before he starts cadence.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was wondering how you did that.
Yeah.
Look, if he thought, I thought he came up to the line and then started looking, but yeah, that
No,
makes sense.
I mean, sometimes he would, but most time I drill into his head. We get the next play in as the linemen are getting their splits, ready to go. You should be scanning. Once you got your play, you got your call. Okay, now you're scanning.
Okay. So, and if you go late,
Mm-hmm.
nothing changes except your back's down on the other side.
Yeah, just show it. Just gotta scroll way down to it. Late Z corner left. That's it.
Okay.
Now X is the snag route. Y is the backside, and just nothing changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's easy. Take.
The only thing they have to understand is that what Z is always on the line in a 3x1. So X would then come off, H would be off, and then Y would move on.
Oh, you don't have a. Where's your Y? Backside.
He's
Yeah.
right here. He
Okay.
stays.
So you don't move your Y. You just move your.
X and Y are always on the left and right. They're always there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I want to make that easy to say. If you're X, you are always on the left, and left unless we kind of create some crazy formation where we go like 4x1 or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I do have. I do have a couple of those little crazy formation sets that we
Okay.
every once in a while we put in. But no, I try to make it easy as possible, and these are the kind of rules that I explained to them early and often. I said X is always on the left, Y is always on the right. There's no question about that.
Okay.
And then
Y is always on.
and then in 3x1, well, I mean, in an ace formation, I had it inverted because I wanted H off the line. So what I would do is I would do like in a regular ace formation, X was on, H is off, Z was on, which is my slot receiver, Y was off. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I kind of had it intermixed. You could do it where both slots are off, and whatever you want. I just had it that way because I don't know. To be honest, I don't even know why I had it that way. Just it kind of looked interesting, and on top of that, sometimes we get press coverage on one of our outside receivers, and if we put them off the line, then obviously can't get as much of an easy of a press on that receiver.
Okay.
We could
Yeah.
flip that too. We gave us in where we would flip it, and then Z would be off, Y would be on, H would be on, X would be off, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we would just
Yeah. That makes sense.
and
Okay.
so with 3x1 rule, I would install formation. I mean, in my first three formations that I basically used exclusively was ace, early, and late. And the rule was simple. It was, obviously you talk about your spacing as far as where they're lined up at, but then Z and H are always part of the trips. X and Y will always stay left and right, and that doesn't change. The only thing that does change is that if we have trips to the left, Y or Z is the only receiver on the line. And then say X says, "Oh, that's easy." Then I just line up off the line. Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
And you have to drill that. You get that out. You go out there and have them just run out to their formation real fast. Just early in your practices. Once you teach formation, just all right. Put them in three groups of and just say, hey, all right. This group line up in early. This group line up in late. This group line up in ace. You know what I mean? And just
Right.
see how they get out there and lined up. Don't give them a player and then I just want to see you get out in your formation.
Oh, okay. And you just use linemen are all doing their own thing, and you're just using trash cans as line, correct?
What's that?
Linemen are off doing their own thing, and you're just using like cones or trash cans
Yeah, I
for
mean, well,
line.
you could do it with the lineman too. I mean, you could make it like even if it was like day 1 or 2, if whatever you want to teach your formations, and you had like at the end of the practice, you had like a team session. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Or even you could even turn it into a little bit of conditioning. It's like, hey, let's start the 10-yard line of whatever kind of practice field you got, and let's go up and down the field fast. Let's turn this into a tempo session. You know what I mean?
How would you do that?
Well, I'd say, okay, give me group one and put them in 2 groups, right?
Yeah.
And you start them at the goal line. Group 1, run out the 10-yard line, get in early. Okay. Group 2, run to the front of the 20-yard line, getting late, and then just keep going, and then
Oh, and then they come
keep
all the way back to the goal line.
all the way down, and come back. Turn it into like a 10-minute conditioning session.
Woo!
Yeah, because
That's
we
good.
would do once we had plays, we would go tempo sessions at the end of practices a lot to really gas them.
Okay.
And it
No,
pays off too,
conditioning
because
with
we all of a
purpose.
sudden, especially in middle school, man, when those guys are not expecting up tempo, no huddle, and you catch them off guard, and they're like, "Holy shit, they're going fast!"
Yeah.
And see, like that first game that we when we first instituted it, I remember that first drive where they were still getting the calls from the sideline, and we were running a play. I mean, that first drive we had 2 plays. 2 plays. We scored 2 plays. Scored on that second play. They're still getting there. They're still getting their side. We called stick, and the corner wasn't even paying attention. He wasn't even paying attention,
Oh,
and boom, right over top. They're still looking at the sideline trying to get their call, and we just ran and
okay.
quarterback saw it and just tossed it. And the kids are all just like, what do we do? What happened? So they got a little better the second drive, but still didn't help much. So
Right. Okay. I like that. I like that.
yeah.
I'm gonna steal that from him. That's a good idea. Condition with a purpose, right?
Absolutely. Get it started early. That way you're also repping them into their knowing, you got to get them out there fast. The linemen got to get their splits. I mean, I don't know how many coaches you say you're going to have.
It's gonna be 3 of us.
Okay. Well, you have one guy watching the offensive line, making sure they get their splits, one guy watching the receivers, one guy watching the quarterback, in the running back, making sure their depth and other that's right. And then, you or whatever, where maybe you're watching the quarterback, running back, you're harping on tempo. You know what I mean? Let's go
Yeah,
with the line and just keep drilling that.
I like that.
Eventually, I mean, the first couple days it'll be pretty ugly, but
Yeah, yeah,
that once they get used to it, it goes.
yeah. Okay. I like that. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
definitely gonna steal that from you. That's a good
go for it.
idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great idea, actually. Okay. All right. So I'm just kind of thinking about practice, going, because
Hey, no, I'm here to give you ideas, man. Because I was the same way when I first started this journey. I was like, I got to get ideas, and I started scouring, and I'm right there with you. I know the deal, and I found coaches that were able to help me out. So I'm here. I'm all here for it, man.
No, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the hell out of it. Because yeah, I'm walking in here and I was just blind.
That's
It's like,
fine.
well, whatever you can find on the internet is like, well, you go down that rabbit hole, you get lost real fast. And there's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
many coaches, there's so much different. And I just started looking and man, I'm more confused now than I think I was. So,
Have these sessions been helping though?
oh my God, yes. Oh
Good.
yeah.
That's essentially shallow out of a 2x2. That's I mean, um, they can go either way. You can have H doing the shallow and Y doing or Z, excuse me, doing the dig. So, all right. So this is, in my opinion, is the easiest one to teach. All right. So, way it works, and that's how I'm trying to explain this quick and precise as I possibly can. Let me get the drawing here. Okay, that's up there, so that's good. All right, so say we're calling shallow here. First rule is shallow to the right, or so this would be Z shallow or Z shallow right, whatever it might be. We can say shallow right or shallow left. So when we say shallow right, that means that this guy's the right slot receiver running the shallow, right? So essentially,
Okay.
it's a drag route. Okay, so the rule of the drag route is it's no deeper than 1 yard. Right, it's a 1 yard route, and this whole area, this whole space between the defensive line and the middle linebackers is dead space. This route will not pop open until it's right here. Does that make sense?
Okay. So you're telling your quarterback not to throw it between.
Yeah. Do not to this guy. Now this the dig route, that's a different story. We'll get that here in a minute. But to the drag route, the guy's running the shallow cross. Do not throw that ball to him in the middle of the formation. That ball or that route will not pop open until he's on the other side of the formation. So what we tell that inside receiver is when you come off the line, you are aiming for that defensive end's heels. So you aim at his heels, right? And you try and
Yeah.
run through his heels. Now, obviously, he's not going to be there, but
Right.
you run through his heels. That will keep that route shallow. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Otherwise, they get in the habit of carrying that route too deep, and you don't want that. So you keep it shallow, and then once he makes that break this way, you tell him it's a 40-yard sprint to the other sideline. Just get to the other sideline as fast as possible. Because if he lollygags and if he goes slow, then this doesn't work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the drag route. Now, in a 2x2 set, the running back's part of that concept, right? So the rule for the running back is he swings away from where the drag is going. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because we obviously don't want this swing to come right here and have both players here kind of occupying almost the same space.
Right.
And then we have the dig route, which I've seen different variations. I haven't really messed with this variation, but I'm kind of curious as to it. But the variation that I've ran in the past is just a straight up dig route, which some coaches will teach it. You want him to go 10 yards. I found in middle school that you had that kid carried 10 yards. He was never going to see the ball because this is a longer developing play, and typically middle school you don't have that kind of time. So what I started teaching him is, okay, you're running the dig route. Look at where the pre-snap depth of the linebackers are. Right? Typically, they would be at 5, maybe 7 yards if they're really deep, but typically it'd be about 5 yards.
Okay. Okay.
Get to right beyond their depth, and that's when you make your break. Does that make sense? So if they're at 5 yards, get to about 6 yards and make your break. That makes sense?
So aiming for the outside shoulder.
Well, what we do is, we attack his outside shoulder. You see, that's why I have it kind of stemmed to this way.
Yeah.
And you want to try and get this overhang defender to kind of turn his hips and go this way, right?
Okay.
That will create the advantage for him to make that plan, and then open up. Now, we also gave the receiver the option of, if he saw little open windows, to settle up in these open windows. All right. Otherwise, if it's man and this guy just keeps chasing you just like the drag route, it is a mad sprint to the other sideline.
Okay.
Makes
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Now, there's a couple ways I've seen other coaches where they've had this route where it comes in here and it's just a big stick route right here where they kind of just come back, get that depth, and just hang up right here.
That's the one I saw that had me confused.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's. I mean that's the newest way that some coaches are teaching it.
Okay.
I mean, you can. I haven't done this yet, but I mean, essentially, it's the same idea. You know, if he's running his dig and he sees this window right here, say for example, this player takes off right there, right? Then he could see that, come here and just settle up right here
Right. Okay.
because it's a window.
Yeah.
So
And
you could do that. I mean, the safest thing is just to have him come all the way across.
yeah, I like that one. So what's your read?
There's a couple different ways you can read this. It's whatever you're more comfortable teaching. I read it because you got to wait for this route. Initially, this is the route you want to hit. Really, is the shallow route, right? But you got to wait for it. So what I would have him do is go dig, back, shallow. Does that make sense? So, and what you're looking at is Now again, these two outside receivers are clear out routes, right? They're clearing them out. But that corner just stays. If he stays right here, you'd see that. So look for the open space here. All right.
Okay.
Then look back. Let's see if there's any. If this corner takes off, then you know you have the back right here. Then you come back to
Oh, so
shallow.
not the swing. Not okay. So it's
Oh no, the
dig.
swing. I call it back. You know, the run back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dig, swing, and then shallow.
Because you gotta let that shallow come across. Now I've had two coaches, or not two coaches, but I've had also coaches say dig shallow back. You know, there's like I said, there's a couple ways you can read it,
Okay.
and it really, what I would do is I would recommend just teaching it to your quarterback both ways and see what he's more comfortable with. Because at the end of the day, he's got to throw it.
Right.
You know what I mean? There is no one universal way to read this play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we just had my quarterback just basically just here, back here. And his eyes bam, bam, bam. That makes sense?
Yeah. And this is pre-snap or
Pre-snap we can call the verts too. Yeah, pre-snap the verts.
so again, so they're running verts on the outside. Do they have the liberty to stop and come back if they see it?
No, those are mandatory outside releases. You know, typically though, what those turn out to be is those turn out to be clear out routes.
Okay.
I want to take the corner as far away from the play as possible.